What would happen if an ordinary human being were taken beyond the sky we know? What if a man of flesh and blood crossed the threshold of the kingdom where God dwells and returned with secrets no other mortal had ever heard? Today we will not only talk about that man, we will follow in his footsteps. We will cross through those same celestial gates, ascend through the same heavens, and glimpse, even for a moment, what he beheld in the divine immensity. Long before the flood that transformed the history of mankind, before the divine judgment that purified the earth, there lived a unique, set-apart, chosen man. His name was Enoch, a descendant of Jared, known for his wisdom, his skill as a craftsman, and his righteous life. Everyone admired him. But what Enoch didn't know was that this silent righteousness was preparing him for a mission that would forever change the understanding of heaven. This blameless life, so uncommon in his generation, caught the attention of the Lord. And because of it, Enoch received a privilege that almost no human being has ever had, to be taken to the deepest secrets of heaven, to the realms where the Creator dwells, where everything exists in perfect harmony under his command. From that moment on, Enoch would no longer be just a pious man. He would become a witness to eternal realities. There, he had visions of worlds governed by light, radiant beings, messengers of the Most High, whose brilliance surpassed that of the sun. He saw the inaccessible throne, surrounded by a light so pure that no human word can describe it. He heard the celestial songs of the cherubim, hymns that resonate eternally in the heavens. That was the beginning of the journey that would change his destiny, a journey that we will attempt to understand today. It was Enoch who first recounted the 10 levels of heaven, a vision preserved in the second book of Enoch. At 165 years old, he fathered Methuselah and lived 200 years more, reaching a total of 365 years. And then came the day when everything changed. It was the first day of the new month. Enoch was lying down when a deep, inexplicable sadness fell upon him. It was an anguish that did not come from the body but from the soul. And even asleep, his eyes began to weep. At that moment, without any warning, 2 beings of impossible appearance descended beside him, tall, majestic, with faces radiant like the sun, eyes that burned like fire, and mouths from which seemed to emerge living flames. Their garments shone with a deep purple hue, their wings gleamed like gold, and their hands were as pure as freshly fallen snow. They approached his bed, called him by name, and Enoch awoke. He greeted them, but upon seeing them, an indescribable fear ran through his body. His face changed, his spirit trembled. Then one of them spoke in a voice that was firm but full of calm. "Do not fear, Enoch." The 2 beings of light, imposing and serene, continued speaking. "We have been sent by the eternal God. Today you will ascend with us to the heavens. But first you must instruct your children and your family on what to do during your absence." That announcement fell upon Enoch like a silent thunderclap. There was no time for doubts. There was no room for questions. "No one should look for you," they added, "until the Lord brings you back." And Enoch, with the humility that always characterized him, obeyed without hesitation. He left his house and walked to the designated place, certain that something great, perhaps fearsome, was about to happen. There he gathered his sons, Methuselah, Ram, and Gad. Their faces showed concern. Enoch, on the other hand, spoke with a mixture of serenity and gravity that they had never seen in him. "Listen carefully, my sons," he began. "I do not know where I am going or what awaits me." There was a profound silence, as if even the wind had stopped moving. "But I tell you this, do not turn away from the Most High God because of vain things or false powers that did not create the heavens or the earth. All of that, and those who follow it, is destined for perdition." His words were not just advice. They were a legacy. "May the Lord grant you courage and wisdom to live with reverence toward him," Enoch continued. "And remember, no one should come looking for me. Only when the Lord allows it will I return." That phrase sealed Enoch's destiny. And then it happened. Immediately after uttering those words, the angels lifted him up. Their bright wings spread like flames of gold, and Enoch was lifted from the earth. ascending toward the heavens. In a matter of seconds, the world he knew was far, far below. He was placed upon the clouds, the threshold of the first heaven. Looking up, he saw heights so unimaginable that no human eye could bear them. And yet, he was there. In the first level of heaven, he was shown something immense. A celestial ocean vaster than all the seas of the earth combined, moving with a calmness that seemed to contain centuries of wisdom. There, he was taken before the cosmic elders, the guardians of the heavens, commanders of the stellar order. He beheld 200 angels in charge of guiding the celestial bodies, of marking the rhythm of the stars, of directing them along routes that only they knew. Their wings moved with absolute precision, as if each gesture were part of an eternal symphony. But that wasn't all. Looking down, Enoch saw the great snow deposits guarded by majestic angels. He witnessed the birth of the clouds and their destiny, once their cycle was fulfilled. He was also shown the place where the dew is stored, a space as bright as olive oil, laden with life, reflecting the beauty of all the flowers in the world. These chambers were protected by angels who opened and closed their doors only by divine command. And then, when he had seen all that a mortal could endure, Enoch was taken to the second heaven. The second heaven was a realm unlike anything Enoch had ever seen. There, darkness was not simply the absence of light. It was something alive, dense, deeper than any shadow ever cast upon the earth. Within that gloom floated imprisoned beings awaiting eternal judgment. Their forms were so terrifying that they seemed molded by the very darkness that surrounded them, and their incessant cries shook the air as if each lament were a desperate attempt to escape an irreversible fate. Intrigued and moved, Enoch asked the angels who guided him, "Why do these spirits weep without ceasing?" They answered without hesitation, "These are those who turned away from God, following their own desires. They rebelled alongside their leader, who is now chained in the fifth heaven." That message struck Enoch's heart. The sadness he felt was unlike anything he had experienced on earth. It was a pain born from seeing what happens when light is rejected. The imprisoned beings recognized him and, with trembling voices, pleaded with him, "Servant of the Most High, intercede for us." But Enoch, overwhelmed by humility and fear of what he was experiencing, replied, "I am but a mortal. How could I plead with the angels? I do not even know what awaits me or who will intercede for me." The echo of his words was lost among the lamentations. And at that moment, his guides led him to a completely different realm. Enoch reached the third heaven, and what he found there was the absolute opposite of the darkness he had just left behind. Before him opened a dazzling land, a place so full of beauty that no human being could imagine it without seeing it. Trees grew in abundance, laden with fruits that emitted sweet, deep, almost sacred aromas. The food seemed to radiate joy and life. Each scent was more intense, each color more vibrant. In the center of that paradise stood the tree of life, the place where the Lord rests when he visits the celestial garden. The tree was so beautiful that words could not contain it. Its aroma was intoxicating, and its colors shone in golden, crimson, and fiery hues, as if fire and light had intertwined in a single living being. It bore fruits of all kinds, and its roots were firmly planted in a garden located right on the border between the earthly and the divine worlds. It was a point on the boundary between corruption and eternity. From this sacred place sprang two surprising springs. One flowed with milk and honey, the other with oil and wine, and their waters divided into 4 great rivers that peacefully crossed the Garden of Eden, then extending throughout the world to complete the natural cycle of the elements. No tree there was barren. Everything overflowed with life. Blessings arose from everywhere. 300 radiant angels guarded the garden, and their voices formed a perfect chorus of hymns in honor of the Lord. The sound seemed to envelop the entire creation, as if each note were an eternal reminder of the divine purpose. Astonished, Enoch could not help but exclaim, "This place is truly magnificent." The celestial beings who accompanied him replied, "Enoch, this garden was prepared for those who remain faithful even in the midst of the greatest trials. For those who turn away from evil, judge with justice, share their food with the hungry, clothe the naked, strengthen the weak, and care for the orphans, who live justly before God and worship Him with sincerity and devotion. But even in that third heaven, full of light and beauty, there existed a disturbing contrast. A reminder that where there is glory, there is also justice. Very close by, though separated by an invisible abyss, extended a dark place. A black fire burned without rest, rising from a river of flames that roared with an impossible sound. Everything in that zone was indescribable torment. A heat that burned even the soul, a cold that pierced the bones, a thirst that was never quenched, and tremors that could not be stopped. Cruel chains held the condemned, and the guardian angels there were not like those of paradise. These were fearsome, severe, armed with instruments of punishment that reflected divine justice. The suffering seemed endless. The cries, too, faced with that vision. A shiver ran through Enoch, and he exclaimed, full of anguish, "This place is horrifying." The celestial beings who accompanied him responded with solemnity. This is the fate reserved for those who reject the Creator, for those who surrendered to sin, corrupted their nature, and committed perverse acts against the innocence of children. For those who practice witchcraft, resort to black magic, and glory in their evil deeds. They then pointed to other inhabitants of the abyss. The liars, the thieves, those who sowed envy and hatred, those who shed blood without remorse, those who cursed their fellow human beings, exploited the poor for gain, and turned their backs on the needy, leaving the naked and the defenseless in abandonment. These people never knew their Creator, said the angels. They worshipped lifeless idols, statues made by human hands that do not hear, do not see, do not breathe. They venerated what cannot save them, and now they face eternal judgment. This dark place is their final punishment. After that heartbreaking revelation, the celestial messengers led Enoch to the fourth heaven. There, the scenery changed again. Majesty illuminated everything around him. Enoch was amazed to behold the trajectories of the sun and the moon, moving with perfect precision and dazzling splendor. He compared their lights and observed that the sun shone much more brightly than the moon, like a celestial fire impossible to extinguish. The sun advanced with unimaginable speed, like an eternal wind that never rests, neither by day nor by night. Around it traveled 4 main stars, and each was surrounded by 1,000 lesser stars, for on each side, escorting its journey through the heavens. In total, 8,000 stars accompanied its daily journey. 15 legions of angels served it without interruption. And when night fell, 1,000 beings appeared, with 6 wings, guided by angels who cleared the way for the sun to cross the darkness with its eternal light. Enoch also observed extraordinary creatures associated with the sun, beings so unique that their names seemed to belong to another reality. The phoenixes and the shikidri had the legs of a lion but tails and heads similar to those of a crocodile. Their bodies shone like living rainbows, and their size was immense. Each measured 900 units. They possessed 12 wings like the angels and always remained close to the sun, carrying with them its heat and humidity, just as God had determined from the beginning. I saw the sunrise in the eastern sky, but that morning was no ordinary sunrise. Before my eyes, the sun began its journey following the secret rhythm of the seasons, the months, and the cycles of the year, marking with absolute precision the hours of the day and night. Before me stood 6 colossal portals through which the sun emerged, each 61¼ stadia wide. They were the gates of time, the same ones through which the sun advanced month after month, with an accuracy so perfect that it seemed to have been carved by divine hands. I saw it traverse those portals in absolute equilibrium and then return along the same paths as the seasons changed. When it completed its journey through the 4 cycles of the year, its pattern was sealed, like a contract written in fire. Then the men who guided me took me to the west. There, I discovered 6 other portals identical to those of dawn. They were the exits of sunset, aligned with precision with the 365 days and a quarter that make up the solar cycle. The sun passed through those western gates, and as it set, it left only a golden trail suspended in the sky, but its radiant crown, which disappeared, remained before the Lord, guarded by 400 angels who watched over that eternal splendor. During that time, the sun descended along a subterranean path hidden beneath the earth. There it rested for 7 long hours. Half of its journey took place on that lower plane, but at the 8th hour it began its approach to the east, bringing with it light and heat like a warrior returning after battle. And when it emerged, its brilliance was more intense than fire itself. Instantly, the phoenixes and the shikidri, those solar creatures of impossible beauty, began to sing. All the birds of the sky flapped their wings in celebration, and at the Lord's command, they proclaimed, "The bringer of light has arrived. His light illuminates all the earth. The God of dawn is revealed in the rays of the sun, and the sun rises again to illuminate the world." The rays and divine light joined their force and bathed all of creation. Then the men revealed to me how the movements of the sun were measured and how it passed through sacred gates that marked each hour of the year. That is why they told me, the sun is one of the most powerful creations, and its complete cycle lasts 28 years before beginning again. But it was not the only mystery. The men unveiled another celestial secret. Before me stood 12 great portals that connected the west with the east, the paths through which the moon transits at precise moments. The moon enters through the first western portal, following the trajectory of the sun, and remains there for exactly 31 days. The moon continued its journey door after door, following an order that seemed impossible to the human mind. It passed through the second door for 31 days, then the third and fourth 30 days each. Then it passed through the fifth and sixth, again 31 days. In the seventh door it remained 30 days, and then it advanced to the 8th and 9th for 31 more days, 30 days in the 10th, 31 in the 11th, and finally 28 days in the 12th door. Just as it entered through the eastern doors, it also returned through the western ones, sealing its complete cycle. This movement followed the 365 days in a quarter of the solar year. But the lunar year was different. It only had 354 days. That difference of 12 days, called the lunar seasons, had to be balanced with divine precision in cycles of 532 years. In each of the first 3 years, a quarter of a day was omitted, and in the 4th year it was added completely so that time would not become misaligned. If this was not done, 2 months would increase and 2 others would decrease, breaking the order of the sky. When the sun finished its journey through the western gates, it returned to the east, ready to begin again its march toward the light, an eternal cycle, renewed with each sunrise and each sunset, a movement faster than any wind, spirit, force of nature, or flying angel. The angels who participated in that cycle had 6 wings and followed a pattern that was repeated every 19 years, divided into 7 sacred cycles. In the intermediate sky I beheld celestial warriors who exalted the Lord with drums and stringed instruments. Their voices never fell silent. The harmonies they produced were so sweet, so profound, and so varied that no human language would be capable of describing them. While I listened, my mind became still. An immense peace, a peace that did not belong to this world, filled me completely. Then the men led me to the 5th heaven, and there I saw it, and countless multitude of powerful beings called Grigori. They had a human appearance, but their stature surpassed even that of the most imposing giants ever witnessed. Their faces bore an indescribable weariness, and an eternal sadness seemed to dwell in their expressions. They uttered no words. There was no adoration in that place. Nothing moved. Nothing sounded. All was a heavy silence, a stillness that pressed upon the soul. Then I inquired, "Why do they appear so dejected? Why is there no praise here?" And they responded, "These are the Grigori." Along with their leader, Saturnile, they turned away from the Lord of Light. Others like them were cast into the dark depths of the second heaven. 3 of them abandoned the throne of God and descended to a place called Urbon. It was there, on the slopes of Gillerman, that they broke their sacred vows. They beheld the beauty of the daughters of men, took them as wives, and corrupted the earth with their deeds. These fallen angels lived immersed in impiety. They begot violent giants, sowing chaos and corruption upon the land. And for these transgressions, God punished them without compassion. Now they suffer for the fall of their brothers and await without hope the final judgment on the day of the Lord. I turned toward them and said, I have seen your brothers. I have witnessed the consequences of their decisions. I have prayed for them, but God has condemned them to remain on the earth until the end of the world. Then I asked them, Why do you remain here in silence? Why do you not return to serve the Lord? Why do you not prostrate yourselves before him before his wrath is complete? They listened intently, and sent a message that pierced through the 4 heavens. And suddenly, as if the very heavens were responding, for trumpets resonated with a thunderous sound that shook my spirit. The Grigori rose to their feet and began to sing. A single chant, deep, mournful, heart-rending. A song that ascended to the throne of God. It was a lament that spoke of regret, a plea for mercy echoing through the celestial expanse. Each note carried the weight of their transgression, a symphony of sorrow that resonated with the pain of their exile. When that echo still vibrated in the air, the men led me to the 6th heaven. There, I beheld 7 groups of radiant angels, shimmering with the intensity of the sun. Their faces shone with a light that no human creature could bear. Each being was an embodiment of divine purpose, radiating with celestial energy and unwavering dedication. All shared the same appearance, the same vestments, the same dignity, and the same mission, to preserve the divine order. They were guardians of cosmic harmony, tasked with maintaining the delicate balance of creation. They controlled the cycles of the stars, the movements of the moon, the trajectory of the sun, and the very equilibrium of the cosmos. Their power resonated through the universe, a testament to their unwavering commitment to the divine will. When they perceived injustice or deviation, they issued commands and offered guidance to restore order. Their voices were living hymns, beautiful, powerful, filled with authority. Each utterance was a command, a decree that resonated with the power of creation itself. With songs of praise, they governed and oversaw all life in the heavens and on earth. There were angels for every aspect of creation. Some watched over the seasons and the years. Others supervised the rivers and the seas. Some tended to the fruits of the earth, and others observed every blade of grass, ensuring nourishment for every creature. The very fabric of existence was woven by their tireless efforts. And there were still others dedicated to a sacred task, recording human souls, noting every action, every word, every thought, all before God. These celestial scribes meticulously documented the tapestry of human existence, preserving the essence of each soul for divine judgment. Among them, I saw 6 phoenixes, 6 cherubim, and 6 winged beings who sang without ceasing in perfect harmony. Their voices were so overwhelming, so vast, so full of glory, that no human description could ever capture their grandeur. The sound was a symphony of pure light, resonating with the very essence of creation. They celebrated with jubilation before the throne of the Most High, as if time itself had stopped. Their joy was a reflection of the divine glory, an eternal celebration of the Creator's boundless love. And then the 2 men led me even higher, to the 7th heaven. As I barely crossed that threshold, an indescribable light enveloped me completely, and then I saw it. Colossal armies of flaming archangels, invisible forces, powers, dominions, cherubim, seraphim, thrones, radiant beings, covered in eyes bathed in pure light. Each was a warrior of the divine, a guardian of the celestial realms, their forms shimmering with ethereal light. The glory they emanated was so immense that my knees began to tremble. In that structure of celestial perfection, there existed 9 orders of beings, each more majestic than the last. Terrified by such magnificence, the men spoke to me softly. Be strong, Enoch, do not fear. Their voices were a soothing balm, a reassurance that even in the face of such overwhelming power, I was not alone. Then, as I observed the immensity of the sky, I saw in the distance a throne so vast that no human mind could imagine it. And upon that throne, the Lord, exalted above all that exists. With trembling in my voice, I asked, "What lies beyond? What exists in the 10th heaven?" They responded, "There dwells God himself. That heaven is called Erebot. It is the most sacred place of all." They showed me how, in that supreme realm, the celestial beings gather around the throne, standing on 10 steps, ordered according to their rank and function, bowing before the Lord before returning to their places, while they sing in soft voices, in an eternal praise to the infinite light. It was a dance of devotion, a symphony of adoration that echoed through the highest realms of creation. Around him, I saw cherubim and seraphim with 6 wings and multiple gazes that never leave the divine presence. Their eyes were windows to eternity, reflecting the infinite wisdom and boundless love of the Creator. They sang without ceasing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. Heaven and earth are full of his glory." Their voices were a chorus of pure light, a testament to the divine majesty that filled all of creation. While I contemplated that, the 2 men said simply, "Enoch, we were only ordered to bring you this far," and they disappeared. I remained alone at the edge of the 7th heaven. Overcome with fear and awe, I fell to the ground and murmured, "What is happening to me?" Then the Lord sent a magnificent being. Gabriel, the archangel, appeared before me and said, "Be strong, Enoch, do not fear. Come with me. You are destined to present yourself before the Lord forever." His presence radiated with divine power, a beacon of hope in the face of overwhelming awe. But within myself, I thought, "Lord, fear almost paralyzes me. I trusted the men who guided me here. I believed they would lead me before you." Gabriel took me as if I were barely a leaf in the wind and lifted me up. And thus he presented me before the Lord. As I lifted my gaze, I was taken even higher, to the 8th heaven, Musalat, where the changes between the seasons of rain and drought are regulated, and where the 12 constellations rest above the 7th heaven. Afterward, I ascended to the 9th heaven, Kakabim, home of the 12 celestial signs. And finally, I arrived at the highest point of all creation, the 10th heaven, Erebot, the place where God dwells, the final boundary between the created and the eternal. I lifted my gaze, and then it happened. What I saw defies all human words. The face of the Lord shone like incandescent iron freshly drawn from the fire, resplendent, sparkling, flaming. A light that seemed to pierce everything, even my thoughts. I tried to describe him, but who am I to attempt to speak of the indescribable? The glory of the Lord is so vast that no tongue can express it, no thought can sustain it. From his lips flow instructions like living currents, and around him resound countless voices that intertwine in an eternal echo. His colossal throne, not made by human hands, surrounded by legions of cherubim and seraphim, who do not cease singing for even an instant. His beauty is eternal, his glory too great to imagine. And I, overwhelmed by such majesty, fell face down to the ground. Then I heard his voice, a voice that shakes worlds, but that at that moment spoke with a tenderness that pierced my soul. "Be strong, Enoch, do not fear. Rise and remain before me for all eternity." In that same instant, I felt a powerful presence approaching. It was Michael the archangel. He lifted me gently and presented me before the Lord. The Most High looked upon his celestial servants, and as if testing the destiny of man, said, "Let Enoch remain before me forever." The glorious beings around the throne bowed with reverence. "So be it according to the word of the Lord." Then the Lord commanded Michael, "Remove Enoch's earthly burdens, anoint him with my perfumed oil, and clothe him with the vestments of my glory." Michael obeyed immediately. His touch was like liquid light. The celestial oil that he poured over me shone brighter than any light, as gentle as dew, and with a sweet fragrance that filled my spirit with calm. When I lowered my gaze, my body shone like that of the celestial beings. I had become like them. Then the Lord called one of his wisest archangels, Proverb, the guardian of the divine records, he whose wisdom surpasses that of all. "Bring the books from my storehouses," said the Most High, "and a pen that writes quickly. Give Enoch the finest and most revealing scrolls." Proverb approached, and with a voice that seemed to contain centuries of knowledge, he began to teach me everything: the heavens, the earth, and the seas, the elements and their movements, the patterns of thunder, the trajectories of the sun and the moon, the seasons, the days, and the hours. He revealed to me the origin of the winds, the number of the angels, and how their songs are formed. He taught me human life, the languages of worship, the divine laws, and every teaching worthy of being known. Everything I know was revealed to me by him. Finally, Proverb said, "Sit down and write. Record every soul that will ever be born and the places prepared for each one for all eternity. Every spirit was planned before the foundation of the world, and every soul is paired with another for 30 days and 30 nights. Thus, obeying the command of the Most High, I sat down and wrote. I wrote with utmost care every word, every vision, every secret that was revealed to me. When I finished, I had completed 366 books, an eternal testament to what my eyes contemplated in the heavens. Then the Lord called me again. With a voice that combined power and tenderness, he said, "Enoch, come, sit at my left hand beside Gabriel." I knelt with reverence as his presence filled everything around me. And he continued, "Enoch, my beloved, everything you have seen, everything created, everything that exists, and everything that is to come has been revealed to you. Before time began, before anything existed, I created all things from nothing. I made the invisible visible. I made the intangible take form. Listen carefully, Enoch. The words you have heard I have never shared with any of my angels. I have never revealed to them the origin of existence or the immensity of my infinite kingdom. They do not know how all of creation came to be, but to you I have revealed it." The voice of the Most High resonated like an eternal echo as he said, "Before anything could be seen, I already walked through the invisible, from one end to the other of what you now call heaven. Just as the sun travels its path from east to west, I crossed the void without pause, establishing the structure of all that would be created, and thus concluded the extraordinary journey of Enoch through the 10 heavens. He walked through realms of indescribable light, traversed the prisons of the fallen angels, entered the storehouses of the stars, and was brought before the throne of the living God. He beheld the destiny of the rebels and the reward promised to the faithful. And after each vision, a divine truth was repeated with absolute clarity. God reigns over all in heaven and on earth. Enoch, chosen not only for his righteousness but also to record what he witnessed. An imperishable testimony, a living message for all generations, a message of warning, of hope, and of eternal purpose. But now one question remains. What will you do with this revelation? Will you ignore what has been unveiled? Or will you seek justice, repentance, and faith? Will you walk toward the eternal kingdom? Or will you continue living as if nothing has been said? For the book of Enoch is a summons. It reveals the majesty of God, the seriousness of judgment, and the glorious beauty of the divine plan. May each of us choose fidelity, so that one day we too may stand before him, clothed in glory, as Enoch stood in the heavens. Remember this: no revelation has power if the heart does not remain awake. If you wish to continue exploring the mysteries that God has sown in history, the secrets hidden in the heights of the firmament, and the teachings that transform the soul, subscribe and activate the little bell. Do it as one who opens a new door in heaven, as one who decides to walk one step further toward the light. For here, each video is an invitation to lift your gaze, to deepen your faith, and to discover what few dare to seek. The search continues, and you are called to be a part of it.